the skill set, all them coach speak words that they like to use. He's got them, and I would love to see that harnessed here for Cleveland and to make him another. I mean, think about it. If he developed over the next year or two as his talent does, and, I'm just going to throw Carrasco out there. I mean, it could be any of these young pitchers, but, you imagine those two developing a year or two behind the development here of Kluber coming up, man, and for the next couple of years, you got the core of a hell of a rotation, man, regardless of who else ends up filling those fourth and fifth spots, because you've got three, not completely homegrown, but three developed by you talents there anchoring your rotation, man, and young ones for some time to come.
Right. That's a very rare commodity. We have that kind of pitching that you can lock in and say, these are going to be our guys for the next few years. And then, some of the other upcoming starters who may be kind of banging their heads against the glass ceiling, then they're going to be kind of your trade chips that you can get, right, again, to hopefully help out your hitters.
Right, absolutely. Hopefully you end up with a situation much like with the middle infielders where, the difference is you can't have too many middle infielders. You can never have too much pitching, But you hopefully get to a position where, it's a position of strength and you're able to deal from one of those younger pitchers there perhaps. It'll be interesting. Again, I'm intrigued by that hot stove rumor that's been out there about Murphy and Nice, perhaps, because not only, like we talked about with Billingsley before, you got the Ohio ties there, but as I said, you've got a guy who, he's a middle of the road guy, but I was talking about some of the now I can't think of the site, Baseball Reference, how they do a little bit of their age-to-age comparisons, and he compares out along the lines of a guy like, Garza at that time in his career, at that age, and you go, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. He's got 4 years of team control left. He's got 2 years at, I believe it's like $7 and $8 million, and then the last two, or no, it's like 7 and 10 or something like that, but then the last two are 10 plus and 11 million, but each of those last 2 years can be bought out for $500,000 each. So $1 million would buy the Indians out of $21.5 million a contract in the last 2 years if it didn't go your way. But I mean, you're talking about a guy who, you would have for some decent years age-wise, 27, 28, you know what I mean? In that age range, in your price range, I like that, man. I mean, definitely, Murphy, I think, is in danger of he's in that position. We talked about a glut at middle infielder. Now you've got a glut of guys at that first base, DH, right field conundrum there.
Right, and I think that trade would really make a lot of sense for the Indians. And the thing I like is the fact that you wouldn't have any pressure on Nice to be the ace. As long as he's like a strong, serviceable, number 3 or 4 starter, that's pretty much what we need. And then you've got some space cleared out with Murphy that you can have Moss out in right field, you can have Santana at first base, and then you can leave Swisher at DH. People keep talking, Swisher, next year his knees will be better, he can play in the right field. I would not mind if Swisher never picked up a glove next year and just concentrated on being the DH. And then you've got Ryan Rayburn, who hopefully can help you out as well the way he should. So that would work out really, really well. And it'll be interesting to see if the Indians have any other pitchers in mind that they could think of making that kind of a trade for.
Absolutely. Jeff Gorman from Indians101.com talking with us here on the Sports Fix, talking a little hot stove. Going back to what we said earlier, we kind of mentioned it quickly as we got going here. Michael Morse, if you didn't hear, free agent, signs with the Miami Marlins, 2-year, $8 million deal coming off of the world champion San Francisco Giants. The outfielder, he's 32, but he still has a little bit of pop. 16 home runs, 61 RBIs last year, hit 280. And I hear you, because that was somebody that I know a lot of Indians fans, I know you mentioned at the beginning of this when you said that was somebody that you kind of had on your, hey, that's somebody the Indians should kick the tires on. But I think that kind of fits. They kind of addressed that already. And we just mentioned a glut of guys in that outfielder, first baseman, DH kind of territory. Here would be another guy, although on a much more reasonable contract. It was like $4 million a season or something like that. But But still, I didn't really see the fit after the Moss trade. Before that, yeah, I hear you about him being on the list. But yeah, he comes off here, goes to the Marlins. How about the Marlins? We're focused on the Central because that's where the Indians are. But man, the Marlins have been moving. They obviously, we talked a few weeks ago, $325 million, gross national product of a small nation here given to Giancarlo Stanton, and they've also made a bunch of moves here with players in the last couple of days here, Heron and Latos and a couple other guys now here snatching up Morse. Marlins have been very busy as well. A lot of teams. This has been a very frenzied free agency period since the meeting started here.
Yeah, it's been really crazy. Teams like the Marlins, the White Sox, and especially the Red Sox just really overhauling their rosters. And one person you didn't mention for the Marlins they picked up was D. Gordon from the Dodgers. I really like him, and I'm amazed that the Dodgers, they've got so much money they think they can do anything. But, boy, picking up Jimmy Rollins from the Phillies and then dealing D. Gordon, who's like 10 years younger. I don't know. That's a good idea or not. You got to give the Marlins credit. We all kind of laughed when they backed up that huge Brinks truck to Stan's house. But,
I didn't laugh. He's worth it, but it's a lot of money. I just laugh at anybody making that kind of money. And, I mean, that's, anyways, but that's another story for another show.
The funny part was, do you have any money to pay anybody else? And the answer is yes. They actually went out and got some more guys to support him. You mentioned Latos. You've got Morse, and now bringing in Dan Heron and D. Gordon. So they're going to have a little bit of a chance. But I wouldn't have said that, a couple weeks ago, but they've added a lot of pieces around them. And we talked about, the Royals. I think we worry when we see other teams, sign guys like this. But you got to realize that the Royals lost, Billy Butler and Nori Aoki. And so they're signing Rios and Morales. So they're kind of spinning their wheels. I don't think they really improve themselves that much. And, of course, it always makes you roll your eyes when you see the Tigers picking up another hitter with Cespedes as they traded Porcello to the Red Sox. But the one thing that can give us a little bit of hope is with Max Scherzer and James Shields. And hopefully both of those pitchers will leave the AL Central, and hopefully that'll bring both of those teams down, and you might have an exciting 3-team race. You could possibly have a 4-team quagmire in the AL Central next year.
Hey, I got to tell you, I'm not going to move them ahead of the other 4 teams, but Minnesota's going to be better this year too. Not just because they have Santana. They had some guys that got better in the second half. They've got some good young pieces there. I mean, I know that's an organization shook up. I know they lost Hunter, picked up Hunter, but they lost their manager here. And, I think Minnesota is also a team not to sleep on here this season. Again, I don't think they're going to pass up. I still think they're the 5th team in a 5-team race, but they're good too. This whole division is improved, in my opinion. I'm with you on the Royals too. I don't think they may be a slight bit better, but yeah, you really had to replace Aoki there. So those 2 moves that they made are kind of their best attempt to counter that. And those are also 2 guys that they've signed that have both been thrown out there in people's talks about, because the Indians looking for the type of players that they do. Speaking of, I'm just gonna. All right, let me tweak some Dolan hater feathers here. I'm not doing this. This is actually in reverse. I'm actually going to tweak some of the Jacobs lovers here. But, I love to, whenever I read a book, I love to, after I read it, let it sit for like a week and then read it again. You pick up so many things that you missed the first time because I read very fast. And then the second time I go kind of, pick up all the things that I missed the first time. So I was rereading Glory Days in Tribetown last weekend, the Tom Hamilton and Terry Pluto book, and it wasn't a lot of into this. It's not like a big Barry Jacobs thing, because I mean without him none of the stuff happens. I truly believe that it was him, not just him, keeping the team in town, but he had the political stroke, he had the influence, he had the friends that Art Modell didn't have at the time, and he was able to make the things happen that needed to happen. Otherwise, we may not have a baseball team. We may not have a park there. You know what I mean? The Cavs probably still playing in Richfield. And, So the Modell family probably still owns a stadium on the lakefront. So a lot of things changed because of Jacobs. But, man, for all of the – and this is interesting. For those of you guys that have read this book, you know where I'm going. Terry Pluto played devil's advocate a bit and looked at the business side of the Indians during the 90s and the profit, the pure profit that came out of that 5, 6, 7-year window from 94 up until, actually I think he started it at 93, because the Indians actually made buku bucks in 93 because it was the last season at the stadium. So that was like their first profitable season in over a decade, just because they did like $2 million at the gate because everybody wanted to go to their last game at the stadium. So they made good money there. Then it really started to pick up, obviously, when you hit Jacobs Field and you had all the financial benefits that came with it. But the peak was the 97 season where they made the second World Series run. At the end of the day, that season, the profit that Jacobs put in his pocket was almost $23 million. And all told, for his entire time owning the Indians from beginning to end, a conservative estimate is a profit of $375 million from beginning to end of his time with the Indians, that he bought for $18 million cash and sold for $323 million to the Dolans in 2001. Actually, Terry Pluto did a lot of good research. He talked about how smart Jacobs was. Jacobs actually, when he went to sell the team, he didn't tell anybody, and then he applied for ownership for the Browns expansion franchise because he had no interest in the team, but he needed to go through the process so he could learn how the NFL does a team sale, because he needed to know how to sell his team and get maximum value for it. So he stayed long enough to learn how to sell a team. Then he quit the race, got the same company, Goldman Sachs, to do the sale of the Indians for him, and he did it exactly like the NFL. He didn't even negotiate. He took closed bids, and Dolan outbid himself by like nearly $100 million over the what, you know. But hey, that's what a silent bid does. That's the beauty of that, is you get one guess, and you've got to put a dollar amount on a piece of paper and hope that it's the highest one, so than you normally would have. My point is none of that. Of course you're in business to make money, but Terry also, we looked at the correlation between like that 97 season, and you look at some of the free agent decisions that John Hart was making, and some of because the Dick Jacobs had a set amount of profit. It was like 8% or something like that, had to be year over year profit from the year before. So while we talk about the Dolans won't lose money to win games, this was beyond that. Actually, and I know it sounds like, you know, whatever, because they were selling out and winning games, but when you think about signing Jack McDowell over Kevin Brown, or saving a few bucks not making this trade over that one, or whatever it was, when you think about it, the Dolans, people complain about them not wanting to lose money on the payroll, and then you look at the Jacobs, it wasn't just we won't lose money, we won't go beyond this level of profit. So, you know, I'm just saying, it actually, when you look at it that way, and when you look at the year-to-year decisions that were made on, you know, I'm not saying they were penny pinching, but we're not going to spend on this guy, we've got to, you know, spend on this, and there were budget limitations, but there were extreme amounts of profit. But I laugh because nobody realizes that. They think that, you know, Jacobs just sprinkled his magic money dust on everything and didn't care about making money until he sold the team, and then he made his money. No, he made his money every season, and he made his money before the Indians made any serious decisions. Trust me on that. And hey, we still won games. We went to 2 World Series, sold out the stadium all those years in a row. I'm not giving back the 90s at all, but it's just a lot of people don't look at the front office stuff and realize that those same penny pinching moves were being made. The only difference is that guy was already making $10, $20 million a year, and he just didn't want to dip into the profit too far. Just saying, that kind of puts a different light on the way. But that's, hey, who goes into business to lose money? I'm not faulting the guy for that. I'm just saying some fans look at it very unfairly when they compare Jacobs to the Dolans, you know?
Right. It's very easy for us to second-guess people who are millionaires and billionaires, but there's a reason why these guys are millionaires and billionaires. It's because they're smart, and they make strategic moves to make money and not to lose money. I mean, it's even very rare, even when people, inherit money, a lot of times it doesn't work out that well. But, most people, who are that, even just watching Shark Tank, they'll throw